That we need to hold our students, our schools to higher standards. But there are a number of flawed assumptions that are being made here today, and I'd like to reiterate some of these flawed assumptions. One, higher standards and testing well doesn't equate to higher learning. We all know that students who are not proficient in English, and I speak specifically to students who are being marginalized with the recommendations and the decisions made by the Commissioner's Task Force, that affects a lot of our English language learners. Students who are not proficient in English are not going to do well in those content assessments, because those content assessments also assess language. If FCAT were assessed today in Spanish, most of us who are English speakers are going to be terribly badly in them. And does it mean that we don't have intelligence or knowledge to demonstrate mastery of those content? No, it's the language that has integrated our ability to get the most accurate picture of what students can or cannot do. Secondly, ELLs are not a homogeneous group, and we all teachers who have worked with ELLs know that. There are students who come in 1 year in school, and they are expected to show equal growth as students who are proficient in English. How do we like to be tested in Spanish if we have only acquired the language or learned the language only in 1 year, and be held accountable to the same standards as those who have been native speakers in the language or have learned that language for a very, very long time? We know the answer to that, and we have to do the right thing. Third, we also know, same point, ELs also are varied in terms of their socioeconomic status. I don't have to go many blocks from my house to know that there are schools that are very different in terms of resources and support available to teachers to do an effective job for serving English language learners. All right? My son goes to a really good school, lots of very active involvement. But there are also schools that I have worked with who are low-performing schools with parents who don't speak English well or not at all, but are very serious about being involved. But they are not able because they don't have the English language skills. And it is the job of those schools to reach out to these parents, not for the parents to step in and expect to learn everything about the school culture, the school expectations. Now, how does it feel if we go into a foreign country, send our kids to school, and then expect to know the culture and the system of that culture without help from the people within that system? All right? We need to start looking inward and ask, are we doing enough to reach out to those parents who are really, really serious about helping their children? I have worked with many of them. In fact, I've sat with many parent conference meetings advocating for the parent. And I know that despite of their apprehensions for not knowing the culture and the language, they still sat in those meetings. It takes a lot of courage, and many of us do not really acknowledge that. And I like to speak to that and make that everybody informed that those parents, despite of their lack of English language skills, are parents who are interested in their children's education. That is a myth that those parents are not concerned because of the lack of participation in school activities. We need to think about how schools are reaching out to those parents. Third, ELs cannot make equal growth each year. This is an unrealistic target. And I'd like to speak specifically to the issue, 2 recommendations made by the ELS task force regarding this. And one is that there needs to be an inclusion of the English language proficiency assessment, and that is currently the CELA. I don't care if the CELA is not going to be the assessment that is going to be used in 2 years' time. Just like we have FCAT, that's going to be changed to FCAT 2.0, but it doesn't halt us from making those changes that we need on the school performance report. So there should be no reason why the CELA assessment should not be included in the ELL accountability plan. And the reason why I want to say that is because schools should be held accountable more and more for the English language learners' developmental growth. If that is part, if the CELA assessment is included, then there will be greater participation of ELL. Yet, we try to quickly mainstream them. And then what concerns me is that what happens to those people who are no longer English language learners, but still in a because they need a lot of English language support to handle mainstream grade level work. What happens to those people? I have met a number of English language students who are former LEP students and still struggling in the school. But then yet, each time when I raise the question, why is it that there's no support? Well, they have already exited based on their SELA score. Well, apparently SELA score is not a good measure yet for determining whether students can actually handle grade level work. So I like to make a very strong plea to the Commissioner to reconsider the LL task force recommendations specifically to these two areas. Because I think that even within the federal policy, it says that LL should be included by using valid and fair assessment. And we all know FCAT is not a valid and fair assessment for English language learners. It is not, because it's still a measure of language. Thank you.
Okay.
So the example about SELA, moving away from SELA 2 years from now, and the analogy of FCAT, the move from FCAT Classic to FCAT 2.0. The move from FCAT Classic to 2.0 did not remove FCAT at all. But the move 2 years from now to get rid of SELA is to get SELA as we know it, so they are different examples. Number two, investing great results through SELA. The question is, can we also still use the assessment we have in place, like SELA, to get results? The answer is yes. There are also some bureaucratic challenges to add on from that recommendation. Not saying that we couldn't do it without statute, but trying to do it in rule would have been a big challenge because the statute is driven. Something we can take a look at when we do the legislative piece. Number is 3. 51% of all ELL students are born in the United States. When we took a look at data and we looked at students with ELL who actually perform, FCAT is actually moving in a positive direction. Not as high as we want, but it is improper to say that they can't do well on it because they have. Not as many as we would like, but with additional support, they will. Fifth, the recommendations given by ELL were considered. They were read to all board members. We considered some statutory, some policy change, some USDOE. We will give consideration to those that we can work with through the statutory process. I also want you to know from the ELL community, we had representatives on there, and as you said, it's not a monolithic group, there's a lot of diversity in ELL. There were even differences of votes. Some of the recommendations from ELL did not have 21-19 votes. Some had 9 votes. And so you should also take a look at what the task force itself thought about certain recommendations, because they weren't always even. But I appreciate your advocacy that you have for ELL students, and would somehow look forward to working with you.
Thank you. First of all, let me say I admire your fire, and I hope you're advocating for not only our ESOL students, but for all of our students. I'm proud to say that our only 2 valedictorians this year, both were speakers of other languages coming into Boca High and attained the rank of valedictorian. One is going to the University of Pennsylvania, the other to Harvard. One of them has 7 perfect 5s on advanced placement exams entering his senior year. We trust we'll get another 6 or 7 this year. The other one had 11. So they have completely mastered this language. Many others are doing a fabulous job. A lot of that is thanks to the fact that we have spectacular ESOL teachers, and one of them is lined up here in the yellow shirt. She teaches our ESOL math students, so thank you. Our math students and our reading students average. They average over 2 years growth per year based on the developmental skills score. So we're very thankful for teachers like Mr. Rabinik and the others who contribute. But again, we appreciate your advocacy. I want to say we're going to change the format just a little bit for these last roughly 15 minutes. We were scheduled in at 8. I understand many people have been waiting to make points that are important. We definitely want to hear them. So what I'm going to ask you to do is try to limit to 2 minutes ideally. If you run over a bit, that's understood. And of course, Commissioner, if you or Ms. Feingold, if you'd like to jump in, then great. Otherwise, we'll plan on going speaker, 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 speaker. A closing statement by you would be fantastic at the end. I would like to make my quick closing statement now, and that is, first of all, to say to all of you, the reason that the schools in Boca Raton are doing as well as they're doing is because of this degree of advocacy, and I recognize some of you come from other communities as well nearby. I really appreciate it as an educator here in this town. I appreciate it not just for myself, but for my teachers and for my children. And I really appreciate the fact that on Memorial Day weekend, late in the evening, our Commissioner of Education and one of our board members are here with us trying to make our educational product in Florida the best in the world. And again, it speaks volumes the fact that you're not only speaking the talk, but walking the walk and made your way all the way down from Tallahassee to go